Hello all my art people, Miss Ramsey here, and today for our next virtual art project, it was really fun for me to plan and it turned out really good at the end. Here's what we're making. We're making little hedgehogs, and the little pokey parts of our hedgehogs are pine tree branches. So that's the supplies that you get to go out and gather. I will cut to a clip of me gathering my pine tree branches right now. So as you saw, I found my pine tree branches on the ground. When I was going for my walk, that's where I found them. I did not have to break them out of the tree. That way I was being more environmentally friendly, and I was being very helpful for this project, because if I were to get a fresh branch, it would have been much more sticky and much more sappy. So it would have made the project more messy and hard for me to do. So make sure you're getting a branch that's off the ground if you can. If you don't have a pine tree that is by you, you can go for a walk with your family and try to find one. You should be able to find one up here in northern Wisconsin. If you really cannot find one, try to make it work with a different material, but it's gonna look the best if you use a pine tree branch. All right, I am going to jump over and show you how I did my project, and I will show you all the supplies you need. To get started on your project, you're going to need these things. You're gonna need scissors, yours will be smaller, glue, and or tape. If you have tape, the tape will work better, but if you just have glue, that will work fine too. Pencil, and a knitting needle to poke holes in our project, but if you do not have a knitting needle, preferably not a knitting needle on both sides, a knitting needle works really good for this. Otherwise, you can just use your pencil to poke holes. A toilet paper roll, your cereal box cardboard or from a snack box, does not have to be this big. And lastly, all of the pieces of branches I collected, the pine tree branches. Those are all the things we need. First things first, let's get our cardboard out and our pencil, and let's set everything else off to the side. On my cardboard, all I'm going to do is draw an outline of a hedgehog. It's not going to be with details with where the eyes are and where the nose is. All I'm going to do is draw an outline, and then we're going to worry about that stuff later. So I'm going to go ahead and draw mine. I've got my nose. Kind of curves down. Comes back up. Now if you want to make yours more realistic or more cartoony, that's up to you. I just know that they're more round shape, and they've got a cute little nose. Make it a little bit bigger. There we go. That looks pretty good to me. Now, if you have a big piece of cardboard, you can make a really big project. If you have a smaller piece of cardboard, you can make a smaller project. It doesn't have to be the same exact size as mine. Before I cut it out, I'm also going to draw a line where my little pine needle things are going to stop. And I think it's right about here. I looked up pictures of hedgehogs to be able to help me figure out where all my little needles are gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna get busy on cutting this out. Now I'm ready to start putting holes in my project for all my little pieces of my pine tree branch to go into. The holes need to not be too big so that these fall out, and they can't be too small where you can't shove it in. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my knitting needle, and I'm gonna start to poke holes. I don't wanna make it row by row by row by row by row. That's why I didn't draw it with a pencil first. It needs to be more random so that when we get done, it looks more like an animal more than something that has rows of branches in it. So So I'm going to start up here by this line that I made. This is where my face is going to begin and the little needles on him are beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and poke holes on here. I found the best way to do this is to have one thing supporting one side and another thing supporting another. If you just want to put your fingers down, you're just going to make sure they're not underneath where you get poked. Make sure it's in a gap. Or if you've got like 2 blocks or something you can put down and then put your project on there and start poking holes, that's also a lot easier. So I'm just going to speed this up and you can see me poke all the holes in my project. Now that I have all my holes punched, I can set my tool off to the side because I don't need it anymore. I wanted to make sure I didn't put too many holes in here, and I made my holes big enough where I know my branches are going to fit. If I put a bunch of little tiny holes and they're close to each other, you might end up having the 2 holes rip because they're too close. You can see that I spaced mine out. I got a little close right here, but the more holes you put on here, the more work you're giving yourself. If you have a bunch of little holes next to each other and it didn't break, you're going to have a lot of holes to fill. Now, if you just have 3 holes on here, your hedgehog is not going to have enough little pokey things out of it to be able to make it look like a hedgehog. Sorry, everybody. We had a special guest that just could not wait to get in here with me. So he's going to be hanging out with me. All right, so what I was saying about all the little holes is just make sure you don't give yourself too much work, but make sure it's enough holes to be able to fill the space and make it look like a hedgehog. Now, I have all my little pieces of my pine tree branches. If you have really long ones like this, it's not going to make much sense, but if they're itty bitty tiny short, it's just going to look like little spikes sticking out and it's not going to look, it's going to look more like a puffer fish than anything. So I have my little branch here and already little pieces that I have cut out. And I'm going to go ahead and cut these up and I'm going to start sticking them in. I'm going to speed this process up though. I made sure all of my pieces were about 1 inch long, maybe not too much longer than that, maybe 1.5 inches. Now I've got a bunch of little pieces for me to get started. Oh, we don't need that guy. Now I'm just going to start to take the stems and make sure I don't have a bunch of pine needles on here. And I'm going to start sticking them in the hole. I'm going to work from the back to the front. Every once in a while, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to flatten it. This way we can get the pine needles to be sitting this way. If you just smash it, it's just going to make all the needles break off and it's not really going to look like anything. So make sure you lay it down gently and pat it down. If you start to have any of the little branches falling out on you, you can always flip it over and tape it on the back. Before you get started, you want to make sure that you have enough room on your pine needles to be able to put it in the hole. So that one's good. This one, once I take these ones off, that one's also good. All right, so you can start doing that as you work. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, and here we go. Now I have all of my pine needles in there. It looks like a hedgehog so far. I really, really like it. I can tell that some of my pine needles are, not needles, but my little pieces of branches are trying to fall out. Like these few up here. So first thing before I move on to anything, I'm gonna make sure I have everything where it needs to go. Look at it very carefully, make sure there's not big blank spots where I could use another hole being poked. And then I'm gonna flip it over. Press it down again. Remember to bring it down easy at an angle. And then press it down. Oh, I had one fall out. Make sure they're all in there still. Okay. Flip it back over. Make sure I have a branch in every single hole. And I'm just gonna go ahead and tape it for safety. You don't have to tape it if you don't need to though. If you only have glue at home, you can put glue right on this project and then just put a piece of paper over it to get all of the branches to stay in one spot. So just kind of drizzle the glue over your whole project and then put a piece of paper down on top of it. Let me finish up taping this. Now that all that's taped in, it's not guaranteed to stay, but it's going to be a lot easier to move your project around with all your branches falling out of it. Now the last thing we need to do is figure out what you want to do for the eye and what you want to do for the nose. If you have a little puff ball at home you want to glue on, you can do that. If you want to color it black, or if you want to put really anything down here, you can. If you have any googly eyes, you could put googly eyes for the eye. If you have any buttons, you can put buttons on here. And if you want to put a smiley face on here, you can. I'm just going to put an eye and a little spot for a nose. So I'm going to go grab those supplies real quick. Before I do anything though, I'm going to definitely erase this line. Now, like I said, for the eye, if you want to use a button, you can use a button. I would only use this if you have an adult that can hot glue it on. I don't know if the regular Elmer's glue will work. You can try. You'd have to let it really sit and dry though. I'm just going to go ahead and draw mine on. And I have a hot glue gun. I can always add one later, but we don't need to be using hot glue guns. So I have a marker here. And with hedgehog faces, I saw that they were more brown towards the nose. And if you wanted to grab a crayon or a colored pencil and make it look a little more realistic, you can. I'm just gonna make mine look as adorable as possible with a little black nose and a little eye. I think I'm gonna leave a little spot for it to look like it's shimmering. So I'm gonna draw a little circle. If you wanna draw this in pencil first, you can. Looks like I'm being bold today and I'm going right into Sharpie. Usually I don't do this, this scares me. I think I'm gonna leave this little spot right here for a little shimmer. Maybe that spot right there too. And if you don't like your eye, you can always try to glue a button over top of it. So there's my eye, and then I'm gonna do a little spot for my nose down here. Make sure when you do this step that you have something underneath your project. I have my messy board. Make sure you don't get it on anything. All right. Now my project has the finishing touches on this side. The last thing I need to do is take my toilet paper roll, and I'm going to put it on the back so that your hedgehog can stand up. So I'm going to carefully flip my project over, and I can either tape this or glue it or whatever I need to put it on there. I'm just going to go ahead and tape it because that's going to be easiest. Before I tape it, I want to make sure that I have it close to the bottom, but make sure it's not showing. So I have it lined up. That way it sits going straight up. There's one. Hardest part's done, just gotta tape the top now. If your project is smaller than your toilet paper roll, you can always just cut it in half or cut it down a little bit. There we go. Now, oh, I had a little piece fall out. Where'd he go? Right here. Shove him back in there. See, the tape is not permanent. Well, now he doesn't want to go in because of the tape. Poke a hole in there. There we go. And there we go. Now my hedgehog sits up. You just kind of have to play with your toilet paper roll until it is able to sit straight up. If you can't get it to sit straight up, just tape something heavy inside here, like a marble or something like that, or a rock to make it counterweight, because right now the front's a lot heavier than the toilet paper roll. So there, my hedgehog is all done. Just remember, the key things to take away from this project is safety and make sure that you're clean. Look at my messy board. Let me pull in all of the pine needles here. I got pine needles everywhere. My hands are a little sticky from the sap. Make sure you get branches that are already on the ground because they're going to have less sap. And I also don't want us breaking branches off of trees. Trees work really hard already. Let's not make them work any harder. So make sure you're clean. When you're poking holes, please, 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 please be safe. Do not use anything sharp to poke a hole. It's just thin cardboard. You do not need to be using anything sharp. I used a really dull metal knitting needle. It's not going to poke me. It's not going to hurt me. If you use a pencil that's not super sharp, you can use that too. Please do not use your scissors. Don't open them and try to poke holes. That's how we poke holes in our hands. So please be safe with that. And make sure you take a picture of it and upload it to Google Classroom so that I can see your finished product. I cannot wait to see your guys' projects. I can't wait for you guys to get outside and gather what you need and just have fun. All right. Thank you, everybody. I can't wait. Bye.